spent more time in prison than I did in the free world. I came to jail when I was 17 years old. So it's like freedom is hard to visualize for me.
I've been incarcerated for 13 years. And from my experience, I can tell you, prison is here to punish us. It's here to warehouse us. But it's not about rehabilitating. It's not about creating productive beings. It just isn't.
This is my cell. This is where I rest my head. You have my sink, my window. You see I don't have much of a view of much up there.
We're going to start coursework Monday morning. This is a full-time and long-term and total commitment. When that door closes, you're at Bard College.
Several of you have in the past referenced things like W.B. Du Bois' double consciousness, right?
A lot of the stuff that I was reading, I couldn't understand what it was. You know, it would take me 2-3 hours just to get past 2 pages.
Anything, everything you believe or was taught to believe, none of that matters. It's like all that's bullshit. Now I want you to read with like a fresh slate.
So what else I have, you know? So U1, A1, U2, A2, so E3, A3, and plus now U4, A4. Okay? And
So you're collecting the terms.
Mary Shelley with Frankenstein, she kind of put a critique on women and how they were like downcast, but Jane Austen is somewhat giving women some kind of power.
College, it helps us become civic beings. It helps us understand that we have an interest in our community, that our community is a part of us and we are a part of it.
Now, I was just thinking about this quote from a song of myself. I am vast, I contain multitudes. The individual is not just this set being. His relationship to everyone else and everything else in the world constitutes this oneness. What I do today may affect what someone is capable of doing tomorrow or vice versa.
It causes you to look at the United States differently. It causes you to look at politics differently.
Attention all inmates, line up all the way, line by the rec room for the count.
It is balancing 2 identities, right? You're a prisoner and you're a student. I don't want to say all of the officers, and maybe not majority of them, but quite a few of them don't see me as a student. I'm a prisoner.
We have to remember that there are a lot of people who believe that what we do is wrong. But over the course of years that we have been doing this work, that the politics have changed at the local, the state, and the federal level.
This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for me. I don't care what you do. Take the computers, take the library, take everything. As long as I have my books. Exactly, they've done it before. And what did you guys do?
We wrote papers by hand.
Harvard, tell me this. How do you reduce class size in the face of the current influx of undocumented children in districts already suffering the effects of overcrowded classrooms?
So we were split as a judging panel, and the 2-1 split was in favor of Bard.
Because we're in prison, we're not animals. These green color, they don't define who we are. You know what defines us is our minds and our hearts, that we have moralities, even in prison. We have intelligent men, even in prison.
十几点去上课的，我今天9点去上课。
A friend of mine forced me into the program. It's probably the kindest, most loving thing anyone has ever done for me. It was forced me to apply to this program.
I came to prison when I was 16. Right? I can't undo the 20-some odd years that I've spent in here. I would never, for the life of me, want to see another 16-year-old kid throw his life away.
They made horrible decisions that ruined not only their lives, but multiple people's lives. But a lot of them are trying to make up for it as best as they can. And they're trying to pay back to society.
I'm going home. I want my life to be a testament to the person's life I took. That requires working to the best of my ability and making my life itself a symbolic memorial to his. That's the only way I'll be able to redeem myself in my eyes, in my family's eyes, in society's eyes. That's the only way.
I'm so happy. It changes your whole outlook on the world, period. You know, knowing that this is not the end for you.
Some disturbing statistics. Despite constituting less than 5% of the global population, the United States holds nearly 25% of the world's prison population, according to the American Civil Liberties Union. But with over 2 million men and women in American jails and prisons, how exactly is this country preparing them for life beyond the cell block? In a new 4-part documentary series titled College Behind Bars, award-winning filmmaker Lynn Novick shines a light on the incarcerated men and women struggling to earn a college degree through the Barred Prison Initiative, one of the most rigorous and effective prison education programs in America. Here's a look.
Prison is here to punish us. It's not about rehabilitating. It just isn't.
This is a full-time, total commitment. When that door closes, you're at Bard College.
It's hard, it's difficult, but it's rewarding.
I gotta prove that I'm worthy of this.
They're trying to pay back to society.
It changes your whole outlook.
I realized I learned something. That is where transformation happens. That is what stops people from coming back to prison.
And joining us now is the producer and director of College Behind Bars, Lynn Novick, and Jewel Hall, an alumni of the Barred Prison Initiative. Welcome, both of you. It's an honor to have you here with us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So let me start with you. This 4-hour documentary series, it took 4 years of shooting,
Right.
but it's actually, as I understand it, is a 7-year project if you take it back to its origins, right? So what was the origins of the project? How did it come to be?
So for many, many years, I've had the privilege of working with Ken Burns and our producer, Sarah Botstein. And when we were working on our film about the Vietnam War, Sarah and I were asked to give a lecture inside a prison in a college class about the Prohibition series that we had made. And we went to the Eastern Correctional Facility and brought our film reel and had a conversation with students there. And during that class experience inside the prison, we were just totally blown away by the level of rigor, the seriousness, the focus, the maturity, and the kind of engagement with the material that the students had. As we left the classroom that night, we said to each other, wow, this is amazing. The world needs to know that this is happening. Someone should make a movie about it. And then we kind of thought, we're kind of busy right now with this Vietnam series. I'm not sure we really have time. But as it happened, I got a chance to teach in the program myself. And over the course of the next year or so, Sarah and I decided we just had to make this film.
So Jewel, what was your first impression when you learned about this project and that they wanted you to participate in it?
Well, I don't like to hear my voice on the recording, and I don't like to see myself on film, but I felt that this project was important because I've witnessed guys on the inside who were in the recreation areas doing nothing into everything negative. But when they got into the Barred Prison Initiative, they became the most intellectual, profound, considerate men I knew. So I felt the world needed to see this.
So, Lynn, you show this in the film, that a program like this, or college education within prisons in general, has its critics. And among the questions that the critics raise, and you show them, is first of all, why do these men and women who committed violent crimes get this incredible benefit when I or my children who committed no crime do not get this benefit? Or what about the victims of these men and women? When the families of the victims see this, is that justice for them to see the benefit that these men and women are getting? What are the answers?
I think one of the things we want to do is kind of reframe the question, which is 95% of people who are incarcerated will be coming home. And as Jewel was saying, if people are in the yard basically doing nothing, they will be coming home more or less the way they went into prison, or maybe in a worse place. So education is one of the most effective and successful ways that we have to help people transform themselves and come back to society ready to be fully engaged citizens. So it's really a question of human dignity and public safety. And we really want the film to sort of help explain that.
Definitely. The Department of Justice found that every dollar invested in prison and education saves society $5 in the long term. So it's a 1 to 5 ratio there. That's the general. We believe that BPI believes that everyone or whoever wants an education should have access to education. Personally, I devoted much prayer and focus to, the act that I committed. I took accountability for it. And, I was looking for ways to engage myself constructively in order to set forth a transformation in myself. And prison wasn't providing that for me. It was a struggle. I had to really search. But when BPI came on the inside of prison and provided us with these humanities, such like, Walter Mosley, Friedrich Nietzsche, I was able to engage this material and see myself in this material and be able to say, okay, this is what I want to do with my life. This is who I want to be.
But while you were doing this rigorous work, was it always in the back of your mind that this could disappear tomorrow? Because you depended on the kindness of strangers and you depended on the decisions made by bureaucrats and politicians far away.
Well, that wasn't in the back of my mind. My mind was totally focused on my classes, my papers, and my professors, because that's how rigorous the work was. But, Max Kenner and, some of the administrators of BPI definitely explained to us, the dynamics involved in funding this program, and we felt privileged to be part of it. And we tried not to get caught up in, will we have this tomorrow or not? We just wanted to make the most of it.
In the film, you hear a number of the incarcerated men and women who are students at BPI say that they didn't really know what they were getting into. Some of them were introduced to coffee after they got into it because that's the only way that they could survive this rigorous regime. But in the film, you never see anyone voluntarily leave the project. Are some of the students, is it just that we didn't see it? Do some of the students get overwhelmed and leave?
Well, I think we have an overall attrition rate of 2%, if I may. I will also say during the time that I was in the program, we hadn't had anyone who left the program. And I think it's not because people didn't find it difficult, but they saw that they were set up to succeed. We provided them with informal study groups. I made myself available. Many of my other friends and people on the inside made ourselves available to students to explain to them what this type of education entailed, how you would have to study to be successful. And we also had support from BPI Bard's campus itself, where students were willing to come in and tutor us on certain complex issues.
Yeah, I think one of the things that many of the students spoke about and that we were really interested to capture in the film is just the sense of community among the students and how they support each other and the kind of the culture that is around the college inside the prison and actually bleeds out into the rest of the people who are incarcerated as well.
That's a question, because Giovanni, one of the students featured, says, outside of the class, we're divided by race, by gang. Here we are not. A comedy develops, as you see in the film. Does that flow out to the general population?
Oh, most definitely. People in the population come to BPI students for books, for advice on how to write letters. We take part in organizational activities, recreational activities. There is a trickle effect that happens in the population because people want this type of constructive engagement with their own lives. And once there's a oasis where this can occur, people naturally gravitate towards it.
Lynn, Rodney, who's a true scholar, is one of the most impressive people I've ever seen, says in the film that he is a student 24/7. Right. He is an incarcerated person 24/7, all at the same time. Right. How did you find these students juggling these two identities throughout the 4 years that you...
That's a really important theme in the film, and just in our experience of getting to know people, that it's a constant dynamic. But one of the beautiful things that came across in many different people's experiences was sort of in the classroom, there's a sense of freedom that you really are so focused on what you're studying and learning and the engagement with the faculty and your peers that you, I think, where you are kind of falls away a bit. Or even in people are in their cell talking about that it's really the focus and the sense of purpose is a way to kind of escape from where you are for a time, but then it's always there.
And Daniel Kopowitz, one of the administrators of BPI when I was part of the program, encouraged us to view ourselves as students in an institution, not prisoners in a prison. So that was a challenge that we took seriously and really worked to live with each other inside the classroom. So it was a definite process that I needed to take in order to re-enter into society. Because overall, you don't have that chance to view yourself as nothing but a prisoner while you're in there. But viewing myself as a student made me realize I could take on some of the challenges.
But a number of the students say, and you're one of the people who say something to the effect that, you also, during your years in prison, learned different kind of lessons, negative lessons. Definitely. How to be ever vigilant, how to be violent if you have to, how to pose, give a hard pose out of necessity. How difficult was it to unlearn those lessons?
Not difficult at all, because the liberal arts, the humanities engage those same themes. So I was able to read and see how people wrote about these issues and continuously grew, particularly in German. German has this idea of enlightenment that no one is never stuck in the idea or personality that they were born with, and we have infinite potential to grow and achieve new identities and new selves, and that was what drove me in particular.
Yeah. So we have about a minute left, and I have to ask this, for Americans to finally understand what seems to be crystal clear, that education is the best means to rehabilitate men and women behind jails. Do they first have to understand, or they come to accept, that these men and women are human beings, are redeemable human beings with an oceanic level of potential? That's the fundamental question. That's a fundamental thing that we have to grasp.
I think we agree. Sarah and I feel really strongly that our experience is getting to know these amazing students and their families as people, like friends and families of our own. That's extraordinarily important, and that, for a lot of Americans who haven't been impacted by the criminal justice system, haven't been to prisons, don't know people who've been incarcerated, there's this othering and demonizing and labeling of people as the event or the thing that they may have done, as opposed to seeing them as fully dimensional human beings, and we hope our film will help do that, and I would love to hear what Jewel has to say about that.
I just want to say that's not just limited to prison.
Exactly.
We need to recognize the humanity in all of the people in America, regardless of your racial status, your citizenship status, or what have you, and I think we'll have a better society.
All right. Well, Jewel, and thank you so much for joining us today. As I told you before we started rolling, this is one of the most powerful documentaries I've ever seen, and I really, really hope a lot of people get to see it, because it's going to change things. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
is Douglas Long. I'm a registered nurse. I'm a nursing student working on my PhD. And I'm also currently working as an RN here at San Quentin. My mother worked for 15 years here, retired quite a while ago. So San Quentin Prison has always been part of the kind of the family tradition. My area of research is incarceration and aging. Does incarceration cause people to age faster? There's a lot of concern about it because we have a much older prison population. There's a lot of health problems associated with aging, and there's been some indication that being incarcerated might increase aging, but then there's also an indication that prison health care can actually have the opposite effect. Prisoners can actually be healthier than in the community if given the right health care. One of the differences between prison nursing and nursing in the community is that the patients have a very different life history. You have to understand what kind of stresses, what kind of medical problems, but also the social problems that led them there. Their ability to take care of their own medical care is a lot more limited. Diets can be kind of limited, and also their ability to do exercise. Sometimes there's custody constraints that we have very little control over. So we basically have to work very closely with the custody side to try to resolve these kind of issues. The UCSF is one of the top-ranked nursing programs in America. They also have a lot of talent in the fields of correctional health care. It's actually been said that they call this UC San Quentin because we have a lot of UC doctors, a lot of UC psychiatrists, psychologists, just a lot of health professionals from the UC system here in San Quentin. Basically, I consider myself very lucky to have all these resources in studying prison health care. So working as a nurse in San Quentin Prison is essentially the same. It's the same quality of health care, the same standards. We're held to the same science as in any hospital anywhere around here. This is among the best prison health care that you're going to see anywhere in the country. So it's actually very exciting to be part of this process.
Well, a new program inside a Central Texas prison is wrapping up its first ever class. The students learn trade skills like manufacturing to set them up for success when they do get released.
We got a rare look inside the Lockhart Correctional Facility. KXAN's Wes Rappaport shows us how these women are preparing to re-enter society through a partnership with Austin Community College.
These inmates are getting ready to job hunt.
One that pays a lot of money.
The 14 women are about to graduate as certified production technicians.
They're prepared for any sort of frontline operator or supervisory position in any sort of manufacturing environment.
A chance to be able to go out there and know that there's a job waiting for us and a job that's going to pay us well. No matter that stigma, no matter that record.
The students had class 3 days a week, 4 hours a day for nearly 4 months. And yes, there was homework.
We can't get on the internet. We don't have the resources that they do out there. You can't just pick up a phone in here and phone a friend saying, hey, help me with this or something, And a lot of us ladies don't live in the same dorm. We live on two different sides of this unit, and you can get in trouble for going over on that other side. So, it wasn't easy.
When you've been gone as long as I have, I don't even know how to work that phone in your hand. So, but I know how to do electrical circuits.
We all make mistakes, and it's important that we provide that offender, someone's loved one, a second chance to get it right. They're just not doing time here. We're providing them a service so they can be a better person when they go out.
After 5 years locked up for marijuana possession, Mary Henry gets released back to her home in Tyler at the end of next week.
I really feel like since taking this class that the opportunities are endless.
She's glad that she's made use of the time she's served, but has it gained any favor in the warden's eyes?
Unless the warden decides to let me go early, like Monday, something. No? Okay. No? Okay, never mind.
The first ever graduation for this program is on Saturday, and just like at any other commencement, all 14 women will be wearing caps and gowns. Reporting in Lockhart, I'm Wes Rappaport. Back to you.
Austin Community College confirms another round of the program was approved this week. The program tuition is more than $2,800 a student, which is what ACC charges for all its classes. But the Inmate students can also apply for scholarships.
The program we're talking about is known as the Vocational Village.
It's designed to create a brighter future for prisoners and help inmates focus on a new career and their future, leaving a life of crime behind them. Joseph Gora is learning all the ins and outs of laying concrete. Gora has been locked up for the last 6 years at this state prison for men, serving time for arson.
I've had a lot of bad influences in my life, which led me into using drugs and alcohol and just going down the wrong path.
He's getting ready to be released in January, but when he leaves the Parnell Correctional Facility in Jackson, he'll head out with the tools for a job.
It's a wonderful experience, learning a whole new trade that can help me and help a lot of other people.
Gora is one of hundreds of inmates enrolled in the prison's Vocational Village, a training program where inmates learn skills to help them get jobs once they're released. How many offenders do you have working in this space?
41. 41 offenders will be coming through at any given day, working on the machinery in here or in the classroom, depending on where they are in the course.
Warren Hunt says for him, it's been a life-changing experience.
When you get into a trade, it gives you hope for on the outside. When you get out, you know that you'll have a skill that you can turn to actually prosper in life and not go back to what you used to do. When they come into the class, a lot of times there's a lot of hesitance. It's like, man, I don't know if I can do this whole thing. And then by the end, they're like, oh my gosh, I've learned all of this in this relatively short amount of time. And then they'll come up to us. Sometimes they'll tell us, this is one of the most, influential things that I've ever done with my life.
Prisoners take a test to see which area might be their best fit. There's tree trimming, masonry, auto repair, even truck driving.
This is the only program like this in the nation right now that's doing the remarkable things that we're doing.
Months before they're set to be released, staffers help line up interviews and meetings with recruiters.
These guys have hope, and that's something you don't see a lot in prison. They have hope that they're going to get a job and they are going to be successful when they leave here.
And once you tell a guy that it's their choice and they can choose to do the right thing and they can choose to go a different direction than what they've done, then once that empowerment goes back to them, that's all I need as a teacher.
Teachers and instructors giving these inmates a chance for a fresh start.
It's hard to smile in prison, but it definitely gives you a reason to smile, a reason to want to keep going every single day.
It gives me much hope. Yeah.
Hope for the future.
Hope for the future.
There's also a Vocational Village program in Ionia, and a third is in the works right now. It's set to open at the end of this year at the Women's Huron Valley facility, which is in Ypsilanti. More than 400 prisoners are enrolled right now between those two existing programs.
Having interviews before you even leave and having something lined up, so important.
How different that is, too, from
Right.
years past, right?
Yeah.
It's like a sign of the times.
You know that recidivism rate goes shooting up if they don't have a job.
Yeah, the numbers are pretty incredible.
Yeah.
Takes a lot of manpower and women power to make sure one of the biggest summer events in the Treasure Valley runs smoothly in Canyon County. We're talking about the fair, from setting up to tearing down. Some of that labor isn't actually costing the taxpayer, though, costing them anything, all thanks to a program that is putting people to work instead of putting them behind bars. Joey Prechtel live at the fair right now to tell us more about that program. Joey?
Brian, it's all through the Sheriff's Inmate Labor Detail Program. These are people who commit those lower level crimes, and instead of being sent off to jail, they are instead sentenced to really just work for the county, and it helps out the Canyon County Fair quite a bit, because from the beginning to the end, from when they're setting up about 2 weeks ago to when they're tearing down a week after the fair ends, more than 100 inmates would have helped out in some way. Summertime in Canyon County means it's fair time. And with all the livestock around, it can get a little messy. Okay, so very messy. But the cleanup is a job someone has to do.
They're going to be down here helping the people of Canyon County, helping it run smoother, and not having any cost to the taxpayer in that regard.
That's where these folks come in. People like Taylor Rojas.
I'd much rather work with the sheriff than do jail time, yeah, for sure.
She was caught driving without a license 3 times, but instead of jail, she was sent to this program.
Jail is really scary. I've never really been to jail before here. This is probably like my first offense, so yeah, I would much rather do sealed than go to jail.
Sealed, or the Sheriff's Inmate Labor Detail.
Sealed is an alternative sentence that the judges are using.
It helps keep people out of jail.
You can still be held accountable and responsible, but you're going to put in some man hours for the county.
And it's cost effective for the county.
The judge can sentence a lot of people to sealed, and those people do not stay in the jail. That helps us out tremendously, and it really helps out the taxpayer too, because we're not paying for those folks.
And while the work is dirty, Taylor, at least, seems to enjoy it.
It's way better than doing other jobs. They have us working outside, but this one's nice because we just get to see a bunch of happy faces around, and we get to see all the animals, the livestock, which is cool.
So basically how this whole thing works is those inmates are sentenced to meet a certain amount of hours that they have to meet, usually around 50, and they have a time frame where they have to meet those hours, usually around 6 months. And Sheriff Donahue was telling me that he provides the service to more than 50 organizations throughout the county, so it's not just limited to the Canyon County Fair. Brian?
Yeah, it seems like a win-win for everyone involved. Thanks, Joey.
During my own incarceration, I was able to take one college course, and that was it was actually a state-funded course called Project Insight in New Jersey. And the course that I took was called Business English 101 it was a 100-level course. Immediately after I finished that course, funding was cut. And so uniquely, I came into prison having some college credit and college experience already. I was an undergraduate at Temple University before I dropped out. So it wasn't necessarily new to college, but I did have a unique understanding of the value that college could add. Again, it was retroactive understanding, but understanding nonetheless. And so knowing that I could go back to college was something that I felt was the only way, the only option I had to have a fighting chance at a better life post-conviction. If we do this right, you transform people. And when you transform people, you transform families. And when you transform families, you transform communities. And when you transform a community, you transform a nation. And it starts with the person. And I think that education is one of the easiest ways that we can bring some people out of poverty. It's one of the easiest ways we can heal our nation of its past ills. It's one of the easiest and most tangible ways that we can come together and be more productive and compete with the rest of the world. One of the things that is always said when I give talks and I'm on panels, you know, people come up to me at the end of it and say, you know, Walter, you're an exceptional individual. You know, I know that people that go to prison, they're not exceptional like you are. You're an outlier. You don't count. And I, you know, vehemently disagree with them, and I just say, you know, I do apologize and respectfully disagree, but I am not an exception. I'm the consequence of an exceptional opportunity. And so in this work, if we can create opportunities that make what I experience less exceptional, there would be more people like me that you would see.